In this lesson, you'll learn all about products, price books, price book entries, and how to insert them with Data Loader with multi-currency enabled. So let's start at the top. What are products? Product is something that your company sells. The object name is product 2. Don't let that confuse you. A price book reflects prices associated with products. So you always have a standard price book that comes out of the box, and that's the first place that you need to load a price list. Outside of that, you can choose to have custom price books for different types of pricing that you want to track. A price book entry is that junction between a product and the price book. So it's saying, I want to sell this product at this specific price point. So, how do they all fit together? So, the whole point of tracking products is so that you can add them to opportunities and quotes and so on, right? So, every opportunity can only have one related price book, which means whenever you choose from all of the products that you see within that price book, what you're really doing is looking at the price associated to that product as is related to the price book entry. So, when you create those opportunity line items, what you're really doing is taking that information from Pricebook Entry and creating the opportunity line item. So let's talk a little bit more about price books because you can have one standard price book and not have to do anything else. But in many situations, there are great use cases for having multiple price books. So, a very common one is when you want to group together products that have something in common. Oftentimes, let's say that you have more than one sales division and you want to make a subset of products available for one division, but not another. Another use case is geography. If you sell some products internationally and you want to offer those at a different price or make them available in different currencies, you can use price books to reflect that. And oftentimes you'll see multiple price books used to track different types of discounting, whether it's for strategic partner discounting, volume based discounting, or even discounts based on seasonality. So, as a somewhat real world example, let's say that we have this specific shoe that Adidas is selling. They may have in their Salesforce environment this shoe set with this product code of IF6490. Now, in their list price, their standard price book, they most likely have their wherever their headquarters is. So if it's a US headquarters, they'll have the USA dollar point for the shoe at their list price. But let's say they have a strategic partnership with Dick's Sporting Goods, and they may have a price book entry in a different price book called Dick's Sporting Goods that has that discounted rate for Dick's. Let's say they also sell this same exact shoe at Kith in Paris, and the price point that they offer Kith is 99 euros, and so on. So, this is a good example of having one single product, but having it be contained within different price books at different price points. So, what's the process for inserting all of these different types of records into Salesforce? Well, we start with products and we load those into the product 2 object. Then what we do is we have to create a price book entry for each of those products into the standard price book. Once we've done that, we can then create our custom price books. And once those exist, we can create additional price book entry records that allow us to set those unique price points for each of those price books. Now we're logged into our Salesforce environment and we're on our standard Pricebook page, which already includes some entries based on other products we have in the database. What I've done is enable multi-currency so that we can go through the step of inserting not only USD price points, but also show how to put Pricebook entries in under an additional currency code of euros. Let's open up our workbook, which includes a list of all of the products we're going to load, their associated information like code, family, maybe description, whether or not they're active. And then I added all of the price points into this particular file because this is how I've received it from many of my clients. And then I have to go through the step of parsing it out and adding all of the right Pricebook entry records based on this initial file. So in order to save me a step, I typically leave all this additional information that I don't need on the product insert so that I have it in the success file with the new product ID. Now, since we can't insert workbook tabs into Data Loader, we have to insert a CSV file. So I've already copied everything from this products tab into a CSV file. So we can now head over to Data Loader, choose Insert, select the product object with the API name of product2. We will grab our prepped CSV file, and then we will create or edit a map and do the auto match. Here you can see we've mapped name, code, family, and is active, and you'll notice that we don't need any of these fields that we had in our file. We'll click next and make sure that our output folder is a place where we know we can store our success and error files, and hit finish. We have 50 successful inserts and 0 errors. So let's open up our file, and first we will click to rename it, and we'll call this product insert success. And we'll open this up so you can see that we now have, under the ID field, let me make this a little bigger. This ID is, technically speaking, the product2 ID, okay? This is the ID of the new product record. So if we wanted to go take a look at this in Salesforce, we can head over and after the force.com/ enter in that record ID. And we can now see this product record called Designer Shoe 1 with its code, and it's got the default product currency of our corporate currency, and it's got our assigned family as well as it being active. Under related though, we do not have a Pricebook entry for this, so we would need to add the standard price. But we don't want to have to go through and do this one by one. We want to put a Pricebook entry in for its US dollar standard price, as well as an entry for its euro standard price. So what we're going to do is create from this file. We'll copy the information and we will create a new file, and we will save this as Standard Pricebook Entries. And again, we need it to be a CSV file. Now that we have these product IDs, we don't yet have the Pricebook ID. So we can get that in a couple of different ways. For now, what we'll do is head back over to our Standard Pricebook record. And up here in the address bar, we're going to copy the ID. So after Pricebook2/ starting with 01S, we have the Standard Pricebook ID. We're going to insert a new column into our Standard Pricebook Entries file. And we want this to be our Pricebook ID. We'll paste that in and then drop it down. Now the next thing we have to do is add in our currency ISO code. In the workbook, I did put together a list of all of the accepted codes for you. So if you head over to the currency ISO code, you can search for what you're looking for. Our examples are pretty easy with USD and Euro, but this should give you a comprehensive list you can refer back to. So in our first example, we will use USD as our code. And what we care about is this column here, because this is our USD price point, okay? So this is going to be that unit price, the list price that we're going to insert to. Now, if we wanted to, we can also grab this list and we can create another set of entries to pull in the euro. So to make this even cleaner, what we can do is we can ditch all of this information because that could just end up being confusing. And now we see our standard price in USD and standard price in euro. So technically, what we can do is copy all of these products. And what we're going to do is, starting at row 52, we'll paste them and we'll change the code to the euro. And then what we want to do is grab that euro price point for our list price. So now we're going to delete that column, because what we've done now is we've put our standard price with the code of USD for the first 51 rows here. And then starting at 52, we have our price point for euro. So technically speaking, in this document, we have 2 entries for each product. Now we don't need the name, we don't need the code, we don't need family. But what we do want to say is use standard price. This is going to be false, because standard price is what we're creating right now. Now that we have our Standard Pricebook entries file ready to go, we're going to insert, and this time we're going to click on our Show All Salesforce Objects, and we're going to start typing entry to find our Pricebook entry object. From here, we're going to grab our Standard Pricebook entries and select our file. And heading over here to our mapping, we've got our product 2 ID and our Pricebook 2 ID and our currency code. We are making these active, and we are setting the unit price and mapping that to standard price. And we're going to use our use standard price of false mapped here. It looks like I had a capital S, so it didn't map. Let's hit OK and then choose another folder. So let's create a subfolder called Standard Pricebook Entries and hit Create. So now we know our success and error file are going to go in a separate folder. And we have 100 successful inserts and 0 errors. So if we go into our Standard Pricebook Entries folder, our best practice is to rename our success file Standard Pricebook Entries Success. And let's open this and double check our work. So we're going to copy this first ID here for our entry record. And after force.com/ in Salesforce, we'll paste that ID in to go right to the record. And what we see here is that for our product of Designer Shoe 1, it has an entry in the Standard Pricebook with a list price of $100 and the currency of USD. Let's click back into this product record and go to Related so we can see an additional entry of its euro price point of 85. So this is exactly what we wanted. We now have our designer shoe in the Standard Pricebook with both its euro price point and its standard, or its USD price point. Now what we want to do is load additional Pricebooks into Salesforce. Now you can create these manually pretty easily, but you can also load them in using Data Loader. So since this is a Data Loader training, let's go back into our workbook. And we are going to grab our Pricebook sample data. And we're going to create a new CSV file with that information pasted in. So we'll call this Pricebooks prepped. And we'll put them in a folder called Custom Pricebooks. Okay, now let's go over to Data Loader, and we are going to insert Pricebooks. And we will choose that new file that we just created. And we want to map in the name. And then we're going to put those success and error files back into the Custom Pricebooks folder. Everything is organized that way. We have 3 successful inserts and 0 errors. Now that we've successfully inserted our custom price books and we've successfully inserted our products, all we have to do now is put these 2 files together, essentially, and set our price points. Sometimes this is easier to do by creating a whole new file, but think of it this way. If we want to start with a certain product at a certain price point, let's say that we want our wholesaler USD price point. So let's grab this information and we're going to pull it into a new file. And what we want to do is we want to associate that wholesaler Pricebook to ID. So let's put that here. And again, we don't need the name of the product or its code or its family, but we do want to have that wholesaler price in USD. So we want to set the currency ISO code, and we want that to be USD. So we'll drop that down, and we'll rename this to the unit price. Okay? And let's drop this price book down too. So now we are inserting all of our products into this new price book with this currency of USD at this unit price. Now, if we wanted to also insert our euro price points, we can do that too. We just want to make sure that we are manipulating our data and not getting confused, right? So let's say that we switch places for that wholesaler price for euros. And then we're going to grab all of those products that we created. And we are going to put those into our new book. Let me copy that. Okay. And what I want to do is I want the wholesaler euro price, the one that's in this third column, I want it to be in this column G. So first thing I'm going to do is make sure I don't mess that up. Put that in the right column. And then I'm going to delete this last column. And I'll change the ISO code here to euro. Just like we did earlier when we loaded into our standard price book. And I'm going to keep this same price book because I want to have more than one entry in this price book. I want the euro and the USD price points for our wholesalers. And now I'm going to save this as my wholesale price book entries. And then I'll go back to my data loader. And again, I'm going to search for all objects, start typing for entry, and then I'm going to grab my file that I just created, and then I want to map it in. So I'll create or edit and do the auto match. I can see my product and price book fields lined up, is active, unit price, and currency ISO code. I did forget the use standard price though. So I'm going to go back to my file, use standard price of false. I do not want to use the standard price. I want to use these custom prices. So let's go back in after we've saved our file. Search for entry. Grab our file. And we're going to do our auto map. We can see everything lined up this time as expected. And make sure that our output folder is somewhere where we know we're loading to. And then hit finish. And again, we have 100 successful inserts and 0 errors. So we would go back through and double check that we have put this in the right place. Now this time, let's grab our price book and we'll go into Salesforce and let's take a look at our price book record. So after force.com/, I'll enter in the Pricebook ID. And you can see now that we have, let's go to view all. We can see now that we have 2 entries for designer shoe one at the $80 price point and one at the European price point. And so then you just rinse and repeat that process until you have all of the Pricebook entries that you received in your source file loaded into Salesforce.